Hey guys, so I wanted to share with you some life lessons that I have learned from a missionary woman. And so the first thing that I want to talk to you about is Sabbath and the things that I've learned about Sabbath through my conversations with her. So, what's the deal with Sabbath? The first is treat your Sabbath like it's your first fruits. When we think of first fruits, we often think about money, and giving that first thing to God. And so we should think about our Sabbath the same way. It's the first thing that we should be giving to God of our time. And with that, you schedule your life around your Sabbath, not your Sabbath around your life, which to me, this was mind-blowing revelation. Put your Sabbath in first and then arrange your life around that so that it is set, it is firm, you know it's there, and you're not trying to squeeze it in. And that helps you to keep it and to think of it and to treat it like it's your first fruit. And then lastly, your Sabbath is not just a gift, although it's a wonderful gift that God gives us. It's a requirement. It's one of the 10 commandments. To God, it was among the most important rules that he needed to give his people. On the same list that says, do not murder, it says to keep your Sabbath. We don't treat it like that, but it is that serious to God. And along with Sabbath, we started to talk about boundaries. And I feel like boundaries is a little bit of a buzzword, and there's all of this talk about toxic relationships and things like that. But boundaries are important. You have to remember that saying yes takes away from other things. And so I don't know about you, but I get a little overburdened sometimes because I say yes and I say yes and I say yes. But she flipped it on its head, because when I say yes, that means I have to say no to something else. And so we need to keep in mind the things that God has called us and asked us to do. And if you saying yes to something, although it may be good and it may be helpful, is going to cause you to have to say no to something else that God's called you to do, that's a problem. And make people a priority and schedule time with them. I feel like as ministers, we have this idea that we overwork and that our life is our work. And so we don't take time to really schedule for the people who are important to us, our families. And so it's important to make those boundaries with those people to say, hey, I'm going to take out time for you and spend time with you. And then lastly, this is a big one. If you don't respect your boundaries, no one else will. And so if you say, this is my day off, Saturday is my day off, but then you fill it with things and other people see that, they know that you don't respect your own boundaries. So why in the world would they? Creativity. Creativity is key to the process of who we are and how God made us. And so we're all creative. That's hard for some people to believe, but I am creative, and people think that, oh yeah, that's because she's a musician. But no, someone who's an accountant is just as creative as I am, just as creative as a painter is, as a sculptor is. We're all creative, just in different ways. And when we use our creativity, it helps to increase our passion and keep it alive. And so one question to ask yourself that I learned from her is kind of, if you are stuck in a rut and you're doing the same thing over and over again, allow creativity to come in and to breathe new life into that place. And we have to draw our creativity from people who are different than us, and we need to surround ourselves with people who think differently than we do. Because if I'm constantly surrounded by other guitar players, for instance, I play the guitar, and I never get the opinion of someone who is a painter, someone who's a writer, someone who is an accountant, I'll never get their perspective. And their perspective helps inform my creativity and helps me to do the things that God has called me to do better, because we're better together and we draw from each other. And failure. I struggle with failure, guys. But a big lesson that I've learned in my talks with this amazing woman of God is that failure isn't the end. And so you've got to learn to give grace to yourself. I need to learn to give grace to myself. If God saw fit to give grace to me, then who am I to say no to something that God has freely given to me from myself? God honors you when you do your best. There's that verse in Colossians that we always talk about doing everything for the Lord. And I think for me, it clicked in talking with her that doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't say be perfect for God. It says give and do everything unto him. And so that means if I give it my all, God is in it and he honors it. And that's what's important. And it's okay if you don't live up to the idea of who people want you to be. God created you to be specifically you. And so just be that. And God is happy with that. You are honoring him with that. And so these are the awesome lessons that I learned from a wonderful missionary woman. I learned so many more, but these 4 areas were really key. And I think changing the way that I think about life and ministry.